Well, greetings and welcome to episode 143 of Bible 180 with 180 episodes between Genesis and Revelation. Today we're on John chapter 15, where Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. Now, as we get into that, let's kind of take a 30,000 foot view again of the Gospel of John as we zero in on what Jesus means when he says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. I am the vine is one of 7 I am statements of Jesus in the Gospel of John, which was the last of the Gospels to be written. Again, a theological interpretation of Jesus, not just the events like Matthew, Mark, and Luke, but a theological interpretation written about 6 decades after Jesus. John's purpose is that you might believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that believing in him you might have life in his name. John's gospel is a theological reflection on the meaning of Jesus to develop a theological framework for understanding the person and work of Jesus. And in many ways, the Gospel of John is, because of that, the most theologically intricate gospel. The Gospel of Mark was written around 55 in a time of immediacy. He wanted to get the story of Jesus out. John wants to do that too, but even more, he wants to reflect on what does it mean about Jesus being the Son of God. And so John uses a variety of literary techniques to get across his story of Jesus. But for our purpose right now, at the 30,000 foot view, one of the literary techniques of John is his use of the number 7. The number 7 for John and his audience was a religiously perfect number. And 7 was called the number of God because it represented completeness and perfection. It was first used in Genesis 1 as the days of creation. The New Testament represented 4 corners of the earth with the Holy Trinity is 7. In Genesis 9, after the flood, God saw a rainbow in the sky that would be a sign of the covenant never to send a flood again. The rainbow has 7 colors: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, and orange and red. How many times do I have to forgive someone? 7, 70 times 7. The number 7 or seventh occurs 654 times in the Bible. 7 is called the number of God. So in the Gospel of John, he uses 7 signs that Jesus does. 7 I am statements, 7 people that John uses to just highlight the ministry of Jesus. 7 signs: changing water into wine, healing of the nobleman's son, healing of the man at the pool of Bethsaida, feeding of the 5,000, walking on water, healing of the man born blind, raising of Lazarus, all referred to as the signs that Jesus does. 7 I am statements: I am the bread of life, the light of the world, the gate, the good shepherd, the resurrection life, the way, truth, and life, and the true vine, which is what we're talking about today. And there are 7 people in the Gospel of John who are highlighted: John the Baptist, Nicodemus, a Samaritan woman, the official and his son, the man at the pool, the man born blind, and Lazarus. John organizes his gospel and he gathers 3 I am signs and people, 3, the perfect number also, to show us that this is Jesus, the Son of God, using the perfect numbers of 7, perfect numbers of 3. And what's interesting is that each of the I am statements of Jesus were connected with a life event that was happening that he entered into. Jesus responded to the life circumstances and used them as a teaching tool to teach about himself and about God, everyday events, as a jumping off point for teaching spiritual truths. In John chapter 6, Jesus feeds 5,000 people. Right after that, Jesus says, I am the bread of life. In John 8, there to celebrate the Festival of Lights, Jesus looked around the temple with all of the lights and said, hey, I am the light of the world. In John 10, they're walking through the countryside and the shepherds were feeding the sheep. And Jesus says, I am the sheep, the shepherd, the gate, all of that. Ordinary events where Jesus teaches a more deep truth. In John 11, right after Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, he said, I am the resurrection and the life. And at the Last Supper, even though the disciples didn't understand what was going on, Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. And the life, not the wife. Jesus used everyday events as a springboard for teaching eternal truths. He was setting up an example for people to look at the extraordinary love of God in the ordinary events and moments of life. It's not just seeing a beautiful sunset and feeling spiritually squidgy, but it's seeing the events of life and the puddles and the rain, the traffic jams, roundabouts, at the dinner table, at bedtime, in a shower, on a treadmill. Every day, every moment is one that can extraordinarily teach us about the love of God for us. So, in our gospel for today, John chapter 5, Jesus says, I am the true vine. It's the last of the I am statements coming to us in a farewell discourse from John 13 through 17 is a farewell discourse. Jesus is with his disciples. Some of the best teachings of Jesus in John come in the farewell discourse. It's kind of like John's version of the Sermon on the Mount. Takes place after the Last Supper, where Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. Jesus would be there, and with his disciples, they had been walking through a vineyard, and Jesus says, I am the true vine. Now, in those verses from John 15, 1 through 7, let me read those words. Jesus says, I am the true vine. My Father is a vine grower. He removes every branch in me that does not bear fruit. Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes to make sure it bears more fruit. You have already been cleansed by the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Such branches are burned and thrown into the fire. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask for what you wish and it will be done for you. Now, as I was reading that, did you notice the word abide? Jesus says, I am the true vine. He talks about abiding. If you look at some other translation of the Bible, they don't use the word abide because that's an old word. What does it mean to abide? The Living Bible says, take care to live in me. Today's English version is remain united in me. The New International Version has remain in me. The Jerusalem Bible says make your home in me. They concluded as they were doing a translation that abide is just kind of an old word that don't mean no much anymore. But Jesus says, abide in me. Come over to my house and abide. We don't say that, but that's what we mean. Be together. Much more than remain or make it your home or keep it united like some of those other translations do. Abide means something more than that. It's stand with, be faithful to, hang on to, never let it leave your side. Abiding is making yourself a part of the one in whom you abide, inside and out from the very core of your being, the outward expression of an inward abiding, hanging in there right with it. Every Christian in the early church would have known what that would have meant. Abide in me. They would have thought that means that Jesus will stand with them, be faithful to them, stand firm with them, and never ever leave their sides. Jesus was on his way to the cross, and this is the vine, the last I am statement, that he would abide in them. And that's what the disciples needed so much in their topsy-turvy world. That's what the disciples deeply longed for right then and there. They were wanting Jesus to stand firm with them through the stuff that they knew was coming against them, to stand firm. You know, you can't help but think of the old hymn that's sung at funerals, written by Henry Lyte, who was born in Scotland and served as a priest in the Church of England until he retired to the French Riviera. At the end of his life, when he was very sick, he was at the point of death. He had lived his whole life as a committed Christian, but he would look out at his deathbed at the sun setting over at the beautiful Mediterranean, and these words of Jesus came to him: "Abide with me." This is at his deathbed. "Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens. Lord, with me abide. When other helps fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, Lord, abide with me." That's abiding, standing firm, being faithful to, never leaving your side. And Jesus, the true vine, abiding as a branch abides with the vine, being connected with God through your entire life, just like a branch connected to the vine. So think of your life. Do you feel like you are abiding in Jesus, the true vine? How is your connection with Jesus today? Are you a faithful, fruitful branch on the vine of Jesus, connected thoroughly and hanging with him with your heart, connecting with the beating heart of Jesus? And if your life and connection to Jesus isn't strong, what do you need to do to enhance it, to make it stronger? Do you need to pray more, follow more, go to church more, connect to Jesus more? What do you need to do to abide in the same way that Jesus abides to you? And, you know, Jesus also says in those verses, he says, "Abide with me, because apart from me, you can't do nothing." And nada, nothing. There's nothing you can do. The amazing thing is that God doesn't operate with human capabilities, because our nothing doesn't equal God's nothing. Our God is a God who creates his own thing out of nothing. In the beginning, when the earth was without form or void, when the Spirit of God was moving over the face of the vast nothingness, God spoke and things came to be. Out of the nothingness came our world, our lives, our salvation, our relationship with Jesus. Apart from me, you can do nothing. When we open our nothingness to God, God can take that nothingness of the barrenness of our hearts and turn it into something for God. When we take our empty lives and give them to Jesus, our nothing becomes God's everything. And we become grafted onto the true vine of Jesus, rather than becoming shriveled branches that lie on the ground useless. Apart from Jesus, we can do nothing. And the awesome thing is that with him, we can do everything. I mean, we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. And that's what I love about Jesus. Jesus took the ordinary example of bread and wine, water, sheep, gates, vines, and turned them into extraordinary examples, what it means to take our ordinariness, our nothingness, and turn it over to him and follow him. One of the reasons I love that is that some people consider themselves too ordinary. I'm too much of a nobody to do much of anything. Some people that think, I'm not spiritually gifted, I can't do nothing for God. Sometimes people might think, I am so busy, I don't have time in my life to bear fruit for Jesus. And others might feel too discouraged, thinking, every time I do something, I fail at it. I'm inexperienced in this whole faith thing. I'd like to do things for God, but I don't have the background. I don't have the depth. I don't have. But Jesus says, I am the vine. You are the branches from my vine. Abide in me and I in you. Abiding in Jesus means that those who abide in him will bear much fruit. You know, what's truly remarkable about life in Jesus is not because of the accomplishments we have, not because of materialism, not because of just having fun. It's immersing ourselves in the meaningfulness of being grafted onto the vine and knowing Jesus. You are put on earth to love God and to love God's family. And as a pastor, I was at the bedside of many people who were passing away, and in those moments when they were dying, nobody ever said, "Bring me my diplomas because I wanted them close to me when I die." No, nobody's ever said, "Bring me my middle school, high school trophies, athletic trophies. So bring me my gold watch when I retired, or your iPad or your iPhone." One day, when you reach those final moments, you're going to know what matters most in life, and that will be loving God and loving others, being grafted onto the vine of Jesus. Faith, hope, and love abide. The greatest of these is love, as the Apostle Paul would write in 1 Corinthians 13. And we who are branches, who bear fruit on the vine of Christ, know the greatest use of life is not achievement, rather it's love. It's Christian love. They'll know we're Christians by our love, because we are branches on the true vine. Hang in there, and until I see you in the next episode, you take good care. Bye-bye.